it to strike the count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, and with Game 3, the Dodgers potentially on the brink of elimination, we had to mix some things up. We had to upgrade the guest role tonight. Greg Bergman of ESPN LA joining us. Greg, we appreciate you. Game 3, how are we feeling? Give me the pulse check.
I actually feel pretty good. This is a game that I really think they should win. Lance Lynn coming in, I feel like we talked about it before when during the season that he gives up all these home runs and he's going to do everything how he's done in the postseason and all these terrible things. It just means because baseball, it's going to be the exact opposite. It's going to be a 1-0 game, and he's going to go 7 strong with 13 strikeouts, and that just seems like that's the type of thing that's going to go down by.
Yeah, I'm with you. Lance Lynn was not the guy that I think we would all a week ago have loved to have on the mound in a potential elimination game. And yet with the way the first 2 games have gone, Greg, it can't really be any worse. And so, he's a vet. At least I guess you like that after watching a rookie and Bobby Miller struggle a little bit.
Yeah, we had the vet in Kershaw struggle in the first game to a terrible thing. So, I don't think any of that stuff is really going to matter. None of it matters. Even if you give up runs, even if he gives up runs, Lance Lynn, the bats need to come alive for the one time in this series. Yeah. Without Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman going through and actually getting hits and coming up clutch, it won't matter. They have to get hits with runners in scoring position, which they haven't done for the last feels like 25 postseasons. Without those guys leading off at the top and making it all happen, it's going to be another long night. So as long as the bats come alive, they find a way the bats come alive. I'm not really too worried about the pitching, because I really believe in this bullpen. Has been great, and Davis is making this like a Game 7 where he'll pull Lance if he has to.
Yeah, and we know Ryan Pepio in the wings expected to be involved tonight. Let's talk through a couple of the storylines, Greg, as we go towards game time here. Let me ask you this first one. Big deal or no deal, the story that comes out yesterday where Dave Roberts expected to be giving a press conference. Turns out it's via Zoom. He's at the hotel having a meeting with the front office. A number of players basically were given the freedom not to come to the field for a workout. They chose not to. There was a big deal made of this in some circles of the internet. I'm curious from your perspective, big deal or no deal?
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Sometimes it's the weirdest thing. So how many of the Dodger players were there?
I think I heard it was roughly half.
Roughly half. Okay, so all this stuff, they've done everything they've had to do. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like Dodger Blue, just maybe that was you. Are you Dodger Blue in the chat?
It's either Matt or Blake. So Matt, medium deal. I'm going with Blake potentially here.
Probably it sounds like a Blake thing, but I think it would. So maybe medium deal. I think the weirdest thing about it is just really Dave not being there, because if it is an optional, it's really not optional for you when you're the manager. You're the one that's the leader, and you're kind of going there. If nobody else wants to be there, it's fine. It almost feels like kind of like a players only thing. Like they almost, a lot of times you need a players only meeting to kind of figure out what you want to do. The manager's voice is kind of getting lost. So I think that's the way it felt to me. So I really don't think it's that big of a deal. They know what they need to do. They've been here enough times. These guys are veteran guys. They just need to go out and perform. A practice the day before is not going to change any of that.
That was where I kind of landed. Like, I think people are looking for things to overanalyze. Of course, what you just said, another practice isn't going to be the difference. A lot of people are saying the reason the Dodgers are losing is because they didn't play enough games and they had too many of these practice games in between that lost their intensity. A lot of people can't figure out if the Dodgers are losing because they're trying too hard or they're not trying hard enough. And so, like with the practice, it's like, who cares? I think Dave Roberts' comment about, hey, I just let all these guys decide what they needed. If they needed to clear their head and take a day off, then go for it. If they needed to show up to the stadium, build a routine, take some swings, then go for it. I think at the end of the day, whether they win or lose tonight is going to have nothing to do with whether or not these guys showed up at the field yesterday, is my own opinion. Now, what was interesting is the reason Dave Roberts wasn't there is because he was meeting with front office people, reportedly. It's what he said. And then today, Greg, the lineup comes out and there are some major changes in the lineup. Kiké Hernández playing center field for James Outman, JD Martinez and Will Smith switching spots in the batting order. So you've got Will Smith moving down to the 5th spot, JD Martinez moving up to the 3 spot. And then, like I said, Kiké Hernández is batting 7th, I believe it's 8th in front of Miguel Rojas.
7th.
Is it 7th? Okay.
I thought I saw 7th earlier. I could be wrong, but.
So presumably these are the types of things that Andrew Friedman, Brandon Gomes, Dave Roberts were discussing during the meeting yesterday. Give me your initial thoughts when you see, let's start with Hernandez in for Outman. Give me your initial thoughts on making a big move in center field.
So I after watching game 2, I really thought that was the right thing to do. And bringing Kiké in, he's been there before. He's had clutch hits. He has that little bit of that in him, that playoff clutchness a little bit in him. And I like that Kiké was in. I like that because, he played a really good defensive shortstop when he was in game 2. I was surprised that it was Outman that they pulled. I thought that it could have been anybody from having Mookie in right and Jason Hayward goes down, or putting him in left and pulling David Peralta. That's what I thought was kind of more likely. So to see Outman was a little bit surprising because he still played a pretty good defense. He made an amazing jumping grab at it. So I know he's had a couple of missteps, and those some really bad at bats, but I thought this was still a good spot for James Outman because he does have the power and he can, as long as he stays a little patient, he could have done something. But no matter whatever happens to be, I like the fact that Kiké Hernández is in. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like that Kiké is in. I assumed this. I was just surprised that it was for Outman and not Peralta. I know Peralta had a double in game 1. Peralta's a guy who was worse during the regular season, who's fine defensively, but James Outman, I would say, is a plus defender in center field. So you're downgrading defensively, even though Dave says he trusts Kiké out there. I think it's a downgrade, at least a little bit, in a premium defensive spot. But Kiké's bat needed to be in there. And, the more I think about it, while Outman was better in the regular season, he is a rookie. He has look over match. So I'm not going to die on the hill that it definitely should have been Peralta. Kind of like you were saying, it could have been Rojas. Like there's 3 or 4 different guys. It could have been Hayward, who, if anybody, Hayward has arguably looked worse than everybody else in the lineup, but he is a vet and he has historically hit right-handed pitching. So I would say I was surprised that it was Outman and not Peralta. Yep. But, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like the difference between those guys is like 0.5. It's not really moving the needle.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on it. It doesn't make a massive difference. And that's why, I know a lot of people, I'm changing it a little bit. I know a lot of people killed Dave in game 2 for bringing in Colton Wong for Miguel Rojas. I personally would have left Miguel Rojas, but it's not much of a difference. It's very slight of difference. They're basically the same dude. Yeah. So I had no problem with that. But this is the same type of situation. It's not that much of a majority of a difference. It won't make the biggest deal in the world, except for defensively. I think you got that right. I think the defense will go down a little bit.
Yeah, look, like the bottom of the order, as long as it's not Austin Barnes coming into the game, I'm not really going to have a huge gripe about like the gap between any of these guys and the guy that's right behind them in the lineup.
I love your Austin Barnes love, hate, whatever you want to call it.
Look, I'm just glad that we're 3 games into the NLDS and Austin Barnes hasn't started yet. So, I feel like that's a victory in and of itself.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you think that would have changed anything for Kershaw?
No. He was so because the issue was all of the things. Like it was his location. It wasn't like pitch sequencing was the problem.
I agree, but it's like when you're used to that's your guy. Remember the AJ Ellis stuff, and when you have a guy. You need his bat in the lineup, but Will Smith. He had pitched to Smith enough. I think he had pitched to Smith like 2 starts ago, and obviously most of his starts this season. So, there's lots of things you could point to. I think that one's on Kershaw first and foremost, unfortunately. Yeah, that very much on Kershaw.
Speaking of Will Smith, give me your thoughts on this other one, which when we did our post-game show on game 2, this is kind of one of the things that we predicted, that Will Smith would get moved down in the lineup, despite being, having a couple hits in this. This is less of a reflection, in my opinion, on Will Smith and more a reflection of JD Martinez being a guy that needs to be a couple spots higher in the lineup.
I think that's exactly what it is. JD needs to be higher. You need to get his bat in the lineup more. And hopefully with one of those two of Mookie or Freddie on base. You need the guy that can drive in the runs, and that's Will Smith. While he did have that triple that drove him 2 in game 1, it's just this whole season hasn't been a good season for Will Smith. Yeah. So it felt like it was a necessary change. I like the swap. I think it was just something that needed to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, and again, I think mixing it up, like, what's it going to hurt? Your offense has been asleep for 2 games. I think game 1, we've hashed it out. Look, game 1, I'm not blaming the offense. Like, you give up 9 runs before the bottom of the 2nd inning. I'm not really like blaming the offense for not being totally dialed in and fired up and ready to go to fight back necessarily in that one. Right. But game 2, it needed to be better. And so I like the urgency here from Dave Roberts to say, hey, we're going to mix things up. We're not just going to stay complacent, but we're going to inject some life into the lineup with Kiké. We're going to mix up the batting order to see if that unlocks something in Will Smith and go from there. So I like that from the Dodgers. But again, I like at the end of the day, this series is not going to come down to whether or not JD Martinez is hitting 3rd or 5th. The series is going to come down to, can Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman combine to reach base at least 4 times tonight? I think it's kind of the number. And obviously you want those to be hits more than walks. But if we can get 4 times on base between Mookie and Freddie Freeman, and then a few times on base between Smith, Muncy, and JD Martinez, like, those guys have to be on base 8 or 9 times at your top 5. And if that happens, as it has happened most of this season, then I think that's going to be the difference of the Dodgers winning.
I mean, I don't know exactly how many times this season. I'm sure you have that kind of brain. I don't have that kind of brain. I don't know how many times they've lost 3 games in a row this season, but I can't imagine it was that many times when you win 100 games. So This is something, you can also look back at how many times they won 3 games in a row. So it's still completely possible. I don't think it's out of it just because they lost in the way that I actually was kind of, I mean, I want to say encouraged, but I felt actually okay about that in game 2 because they had guys on base. They had, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they had bases loaded twice. They had runners on 1st and 3rd twice. They had guys on, right. They just weren't getting any clutch hits. And a lot of those outs came from Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman that either grounded up the middle to the pitcher or struck out looking from Freddie Freeman. There was 2 things that happened in that I just didn't see very often this season. It was Freddie Freeman grounding into a double play with Mookie Betts on base. That doesn't really happen. Yeah. And just those guys and Freddie Freeman also striking out looking with guys on base. That's just not typical. So I don't know. I think they can, if they get on base, they just have to come through, and then it's just the series starts over again. It's 3 games is very, very doable for this team.
Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks 5 straight times in the second half of the regular season. And so, again, they've swept lots of teams, and winning 3 games in a row is not ideal, and it's not even easy, but it's definitely possible. Before we get to some questions here, Greg, let me throw – I was just looking up some betting lines here, some props. I'm curious to get your thoughts on some of this. We'll stay away from the money line for now. The Dodgers are favored tonight, by the way, -130. So not quite as big as it was in game 1 and game 2, but still big. The first prop I'll throw at you is Brandon Pfaadt, the starter for the Diamondbacks. He has a 5.72 ERA on the season. He gave up 3 runs in 2 2/3 in the wild card game. You can get him to give up 3 or more runs at +135 tonight. To me, that's an intriguing one because with a game tomorrow, it's not necessarily a guarantee that the Diamondbacks pull him kind of at the very first sign of trouble. Knowing that they might need their bullpen tomorrow with the back-to-back situation, even though they have Merrill Kelly going. But 3 runs to me, like if the Dodgers are going to win this game, they're going to need to score runs. And so 3 runs or more from Pfaadt at +135, that feels like good value to me.
Yeah, it is good value. And I think that absolutely, if they don't do that, they lose this game.
Yeah, exactly. So it's rather than taking the -130.
If you take that bet, you're betting on the Dodgers to win.
Yeah. I'll throw a couple more at you. These are some total bases bets. A lot of times, like Mookie to get a hit is such terrible odds that I kind of stay away from it. Mookie and Freddie to get 2 or more bases. So this could be 2 hits. It could be a double, a triple.
One double from each of them. I mean, from just
exactly.
One of them.
So Mookie is basically even money to get 2 bases tonight. It is worth pointing out he's seen Pfaadt 6 times this year. He's 3 for 5 with a walk, does have a double. So had some success against him in a couple of appearances this year. So Mookie is even money to get 2 or more bases. Freddie Freeman's -120 to get 2 or more bases. Do you feel more strongly about one of those than the other, or are you taking the under on either of those?
No, good. Because I want them to win. Yeah. I can't take the under on that, but I think you have of the two. I know you have to pay a little bit extra with the minus 120, but I think Freddie has the better chance to get 2 bases. Yeah. I think he can do. Like he was all season. He was the leader in doubles. So that should be something he should be able to hit.
Yeah.
Mookie has actually been bad for 3 straight series. Yeah. So I don't feel too good about that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Freddie, we've seen him just get hot in the postseason as well and be totally locked in. And he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to dwell on a bad, at bat like we saw from him the other night. So I'm with you. I think it makes sense that Freddie's got a little bit worse odds there. 2 more here. Here's one. Over 2 or more total bases, JD Martinez plus 110. So you can get plus money on JD Martinez to get you, the wheels aren't exactly there. So he's not legging out a double, but I mean, an extra base hit, a pair of singles, something like that from JD batting third. That one, of those 3, that almost feels like the best value to me. That
probably is. And also he seems like a guy that hits in bunches, home runs in bunches. He hit one last night. I could see him hitting another one tonight. So that one seems, of the 3, the biggest lock.
Yeah, and it is worth pointing out that Fat in many ways is similar to Lance Lynn. This came from The Athletic. They were pointing out that both of these guys, they don't walk a ton of players, but they also strike. I mean, Lynn, more of a strikeout guy. It's home runs is the issue for both of these guys. The good news for Lance Lynn, Arizona 22nd in home runs this season. So less of a scary proposition than facing a team like, the Braves or the Phillies, who just hit 1 billion home runs. So that's some good news. Last one here. This is kind of the storyline many people made going in, was the stolen base factor. Of the Dodgers' 3 starting pitchers, I think Lance Lynn was probably the guy most likely to get run on because he's both a righty and he doesn't throw nearly as hard as Bobby Miller. So if you wanted to get a little frisky, Corbin Carroll, who's been very hot, to get 1 stolen base or more is plus 285. So now I made a big deal about how the Diamondbacks, sort of loaded up all their stolen bases in the first 6 games against the Dodgers this season, and then didn't really steal a ton after, which we've seen play out in this series. But it's an interesting one because I would bet on a stolen base against Lance Lynn way more quickly than I would bet against Kershaw or Bobby Miller.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't in it for very long, so it didn't really make a difference in that sense. But I would that's probably a lock. If he gets on base, he's stealing. He's going to go. So I actually was hoping that somebody would go in game 2. Like Outman was on, go. Mookie was on, go. Like let's start moving along. I know it's a little bit tougher when you have that, when you're down and you don't want to waste the out, but it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah,
you got to get a spark somewhere.
Yeah. So, all right. So 605, Greg. We'll close out with this. Give me the prediction for this one. I mentioned Dodgers minus 130, so they are the favorites, but walk me through how you think this game is gonna play out, and give me a prediction.
So, look, baseball is such a weird sport that when you think, and I said it at the beginning, when you think it's gonna be some high scoring 11-10 game and it's gonna be wild, it goes the opposite way. I think it's gonna be a low scoring game. I think they're all gonna be tight. I hope the Dodgers can put a couple runs across, but I don't think it's gonna be a very high scoring game for some reason. I think it's gonna be a 4-2 game for the Dodgers.
Okay, 4-2. And so Lance Lynn, what are we getting? 4 innings out of him tonight?
I think you get 4 2/3 innings out of him.
Okay. And then, I mean, who knows? If you can get 7 innings out of Pepio and Lance Lynn combined tonight and sort of save your bullpen for a game 4, piggybacking off of Kershaw, that would be a huge deal for the Dodgers.
Now, let me ask you, I know we got to go, but the game's starting in 2 minutes, but if Lance Lynn can somehow go 7, do you save Pepio for game 4?
That's a great question. I mean, Dave it's like his flag is so planted in the Kershaw is pitching game 4. Now, what you could do is you could save him for game 4 as the piggyback to Kershaw, which I think if Lynn is, if you're at the 4 inning mark and Lance Lynn is cruising and let's say you're up 3-0 or something, I'd have no problem leaving him. Now, the leash would be short, but if you could get through 5 innings with Lance Lynn, I wouldn't hate saving Pepio to piggyback Kershaw if you were in a situation. Now, it's also, you got to win tonight, so you can't get too cute about trying to save somebody for a game 4 that doesn't happen. But I think Kershaw's 100% starting tomorrow.
I'm not saying he's right. You're right. But he shouldn't.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the game.
Yeah. I've got 6 runs for the Dodgers tonight. I think the Dodgers come out and score, and I'll go 6-2. I think Lynn pitches all right. I think it's like 4 innings, 2 earned for Lance Lynn. I think Pepio gives you 2 or 3 shutout, and I think the bullpen locks it down. So give me 6-2. And you know what? I'll just stay on brand here. Will Smith home run tonight, Greg. Give me a Will Smith dinger. Just get the Austin Barnes talk out game 4. Get that stuff out of here. Breaking the curse. Pissed off that he got dropped down to number 5 hole. Will Smith home run. So that's my prediction. Greg, we appreciate you joining us. Everybody watching live with us, YouTube, Facebook, thank you. I will be live here post-game with somebody to be determined, but we will be doing a live post-game show. Greg's pencil, it's in very light pencil that Greg might be joining me. So stay tuned for that. But we appreciate you joining us. Again, we'll see you right here on the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube page after the game. Enjoy the rest of your night, folks. And of course, as always, go Dodgers.
Go Blue.